Somewhere, thousands of years ago, a human being knelt beside a fire, gathered a bundle of dried leaves, set them alight, leaned in close, and deliberately pulled the smoke into their lungs. Stop and sit with how insane that is. For your entire history as a species, smoke meant one thing: danger. A forest on fire, a cave filling with fumes, a signal to get up and run. Your body is built, from birth, to reject it. Smoke hits the back of your throat and your airways slam into a coughing fit. Your eyes flood, your chest heaves, every reflex you own screaming the same word: out. And yet, at some point, a person felt all of that and chose to do it again. On purpose, then taught others how. Why would any creature do that? And here is the part that should keep you here to the very end. The answer is not that they were foolish, or reckless, or didn't know better. The answer is that a plant had quietly turned one of its deadliest weapons into a key cut precisely to fit a lock hidden inside your brain. By the end of this, you will understand that the first person to breathe fire was not making a choice at all. They were being farmed. Hold on to that word, farmed. But to see how, you have to start with the smoke itself. Your relationship with fire is ancient, far older than your species. Your ancestors tamed it hundreds of thousands of years ago, and for all that time, smoke was simply the price of warmth and cooked food, an irritant you tolerated but never sought. Every animal that breathes shares the same hardwired rule. Smoke in the lungs is an emergency. It is why you cough, a violent reflex evolved for one purpose: to expel exactly this. So the mystery is not why humans avoided smoke. The mystery is why, against every instinct, a few of them started chasing it. And they started far earlier than anyone believed. In a dry stretch of desert in what is now Utah, at a site called Wishbone, archaeologists uncovered an ancient hearth, a fireplace used by hunter-gatherers near the end of the Ice Age. Sifting through the ash, alongside duck bones and stone tools, they found 4 tiny charred seeds. The archaeologist Darren Duke and his team identified them as seeds of wild tobacco. And when they dated the hearth, the number rewrote the timeline. 12,300 years old. That single find pushed humanity's use of tobacco back by 9,000 years, almost to the moment people first arrived in the Americas. Before the pyramids, before farming, before the wheel, someone was already sitting by a fire with this plant. Here is the first twist, though. Those early users may not have been smoking at all. You cannot tell from a seed how the plant was used, but the evidence suggests the oldest habit was to chew it or suck it, working the leaf in the mouth to draw out its effect. Smoking, actually setting the leaf alight and inhaling, seems to have come later. The oldest direct proof of smoking we have is a pipe, found in what is now Alabama, still carrying the chemical residue of tobacco, around 3,000 years old. So the story has 2 separate leaps in it, not one. First, some ancestor decided this specific plant was worth putting in their body at all. And then, much later, someone made the far stranger leap of burning it and breathing the smoke. And tobacco was not the only plant this happened with. High in the Pamir Mountains of Central Asia, in a 2,500-year-old cemetery, researchers found wooden braziers holding scorched stones and the chemical residue of burned cannabis unusually rich in its mind-altering compound. The picture they reconstructed was of mourners sitting in an enclosed space, breathing the smoke of a burning plant as part of a ritual for the dead. Across the ancient world, in places that never met, humans kept arriving at the same strange idea. Take a plant, set it on fire, and breathe what comes off it. That is not a habit. That is a pattern. And a pattern that widespread is never an accident. Something was drawing them in. Which brings the question back, sharper than before. What was in this plant that was worth overriding a coughing reflex evolved over millions of years? Why this leaf and not the thousands of others your ancestors walked past every day? The answer is a single molecule, nicotine. And to understand what it does to you, you have to understand what it was actually built to do, because it was never built for you at all. Think about what it is like to be a plant. You are rooted to the ground. You cannot run, you cannot hide, you cannot fight, and everything around you wants to eat you. So over millions of years, plants evolved a different kind of defense. Chemistry. They fill their leaves with poisons, bitter and toxic compounds designed to sicken or kill the insects that chew on them. Nicotine is one of these. In the wild tobacco plant, nicotine is a pesticide. When a caterpillar starts eating its leaves, the plant floods those leaves with more of it, poisoning the attacker from the inside. The biologist Ian Baldwin has spent years studying this exact wild tobacco, showing how the plant ramps up its nicotine like a chemical alarm system to paralyze and kill the things that feed on it. Sit with that for a moment, because we are almost at the heart of it. The substance that has hooked more human beings than any other in history, the thing wars were funded on and empires were built on, is, in its origin, bug spray. It is a nerve agent a plant invented to murder insects. And that is not a strange coincidence. That is the whole secret. Because the reason it kills a caterpillar is the exact same reason it captures you. Before we get there, notice what this channel keeps doing. It takes the most ordinary things you do without thinking and shows you the deep, strange history hiding underneath them. If that is the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe, and the next one will find you. Now, back to the lock inside your brain. Nicotine kills an insect by jamming its nervous system. Nerves talk to each other using chemical signals, and one of the most important of those signals fits into a receptor that, by chance, nicotine fits into almost perfectly. In an insect, flooding those receptors is fatal. But in a creature as large as you, a much smaller dose does something else. It slips into your brain, finds those same receptors, and switches them on. And one of the things that switch controls is the release of dopamine, the chemical your brain uses to mark a moment as good, as worth repeating, as do that again. This is the key fitting the lock. The plant spent millions of years perfecting a molecule to hijack an insect's nervous system, and it happened to be shaped exactly right to hijack your reward system too. The first person who breathed that smoke did not feel poison. They felt a small, bright pulse of "do that again," delivered straight past their conscious mind, straight into the machinery that decides what they will crave tomorrow. Their coughing reflex said no. Their reward system, hijacked, said yes. And the reward system wins because it was built to override everything else. Think about how deep that override goes. Your reward system is older than reason, older than language, older than any conscious decision you have ever made. It is the same circuitry that drives an animal to eat, to seek water, to reproduce, the deep engine that decides what feels worth doing before you have any say in the matter. Nicotine does not argue with your judgment. It goes underneath your judgment entirely and speaks directly to that engine in the one language it cannot ignore. By the time your thinking mind weighs in, the craving is already written. That is why knowing better has almost never been enough. So now look again at that impossible first act, the human kneeling over the fire, pulling smoke into their lungs against every instinct they had. They were not being brave or stupid or curious. They had encountered a plant that produces a molecule powerful enough to rewire the ancient rules of their own brain. A molecule that tells a body do this again, whether or not the body should. The plant did not need the human to understand. It only needed the human to come back. And you do come back. Everyone who has ever smoked comes back. That is not weakness. That is a pesticide doing to a mammal a gentler version of what it does to a caterpillar, keeping you close, keeping you feeding it, spreading its seeds across the entire planet. That is what it means to be farmed by a plant. Tobacco did not conquer the world despite being poison. It conquered the world because it is poison, a poison that learned, by pure evolutionary accident, to feel like pleasure. And conquer the world it did. For thousands of years this plant grew only in the Americas. Then, 5 centuries ago, it met the rest of humanity, and in barely 100 years it had crossed every ocean and taken root on every inhabited continent. Not because it was useful, not because it fed anyone. It spread because everywhere it went, it flipped the same switch in the same brain, and human beings carried its seeds to the ends of the earth just to keep feeling it. More than 1 billion people are alive today who still answer its call, and it kills millions of them every year, and still they come back. No animal spreads a plant that faithfully. That is the behavior of something that has been captured. From the plant's point of view, it never needed roots or legs or wings to cover the planet. It had us. So the next time you see someone lean into a small flame and breathe deliberately, remember what you are really watching. Not a modern habit. Not a simple choice. You are watching the oldest trick in the living world, a plant using its own venom to bend an animal to its will, playing out exactly as it did beside that fire 12,000 years ago. The smoke was always the emergency your body said it was. You just met something that turned the alarm into an invitation. And if a plant quietly hijacking your brain unsettles you, then you should know your ancestors did something even stranger with a piece of rotting, spoiling fruit. Someone ate it, felt the world tilt, and came back for more. Go find out why.